Third time's a charm? Let's have a look.
Looking better, I think.
Let's give it a sec before it eats it. But it seems to be coming through a little clearer. So yeah, third time's a charm. There I am, just fucking watching the bitrate come in live. Okay, this is better. All right. So let's not jinx it. Bacon, Lizzie, Ortrazini, Catastros, Fearless, Sable, and what? Oh, friends, come on in. Bacon, the one day where I wish Dinobot would just give it a little moment before yelling is the one day it's like, oh hey, you ready to roll? And Step Gentle, Lost and Found. What, oh friends? Hello. Gitned, a good afternoon to yourself. Ehrman, WolfCrad, hello. All right. Okay, this is looking a lot more stable.
Captain on the bridge.
And good afternoon to yourself. Jesus, the full, 42 months at a tier 3. So, heckin' thank you. Sorry, I look a little like this morning was a lot, and it took a while to get everything together to come join your good selves. And then everything decided to not work. Why is this not? So, friends, bear with me if I seem a little all over the place. I'm just trying to make sure everything gets working. Alright. So, Plutonium Shaw, Captain Stephanie Barnes, Head of House Valkyrie. What ho, friend? Vanderbeest, hello. Should be alright. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit more natter and whatnot, just whilst making sure we're not going to have a repeat. God, I tell you, friends, it always comes in threes. But I fucking did it. I'm here. I'm hanging out with your good selves. The universe has tried its absolute damnedest to throw everything in the way. What's the great quote from Dragon Ball? When you fall off the horse, you dust yourself off, you stand back up again, and you eat that horse. WolfCrad, thank you for filling the pint glass. So friends, again, we just we're in a little bit of a holding pattern right now, because I want to make sure we're not going to feckin' stack it down the digital stairs again. So, come on in, make yourself comfy. If any of you want to go grab like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or something, like now is the time. Annoyingly, I can't tell you about half the things that are going on right now. It's one of the... It's nice being in a position where, touch wood, potentially longship adjacent things are going well. However, they're currently in the very formal document stage, so I can't talk about them. So if I have the air of someone who is overly stressed and ready to walk into the sea, please know that there are good things going down right now. It's just that's the stuff I can't tell you about. Unless you all really, really, really want to hear about the amount of time I've spent on Rogue Tower, which has been very, very good. I believe that was a gift from Kimball, and I will probably need to say a bunch of thank yous on that one. Jackie, not currently. There's a solid concept, and there's a potential that we could start getting a team together, but I haven't even gotten myself onto a business footing where I can set up a company. And that's just like an hours in a day problem. Hey!
Boss, just say Amazon makes it go faster. Get paint in the night red. More DACA.
Mal, how are you doing, mate? Thank you for 30 months as well. Yeah, it's a morning of technical problems. Just as we're planning to do like a return to a great classic. So I'm currently in a holding pattern right now to find out if everything's going to be stable enough for us to continue. If today doesn't happen, then if everything fucks up here, we'll hang out on the sofa, we'll do a phone stream, and we'll reschedule our return to one shot for another day. Snuggly, J-Post. Oh, so Captain Steph, what day is your birthday? I thought that was today. Well, then Fire Strager, have a lovely rest of your day. Hopefully everything goes well here. Hopefully.
At any rate, I've been here for 14 months, causing chaos. Clam soda, Weagle, and sauce and 100 3D printed will sharks to be mailed.
Well, Jackie, for 14 months at a tier 2, thank you, friend. Well, I mean, Plutonium, sure, that was... I wouldn't say it was a boiler room. It was just the smaller middle room of the last place. Because the last place was great during the winter. Because, it was kind of like the middle flat. Like, there was people above us, to the side, and below. So during the winter, we were nice and snug, like nice and insulated. But during the summer, it was very difficult to keep the rig cool. But then again... Oh, okay. So, Captain Steph, your birthday was yesterday. All right. Okay. Well, Captain Stephanie Barnes, happy birthday to you, friend. I feel more than a little guilty that this is the day of all days when everything technically is proving to be a hot, fresh nightmare. But worst case, we'll get to hang out. And Night Valen, did you think I was not aware that Sniper Elite 5 was coming out? I think it's dropping the 26th of this month. Oh, sorry, and Vanderbeest. Continued head of house order. Thank you kindly.
Stop that incessant clicking.
Okay, so Captain Steph, are you off? Are you heading off to work today? Because what I might do is then save our return to one shot for a day when you're able to join us, like a Saturday or something. Just because today is super shaky, technical-wise. You're at work now. Okay. Yeah, sorry, friends. I don't mean to seem as discombobulated as I am. I had to dig real deep this morning to... Oh, no, don't you start fecking around. What was that? Okay, that was just a small dip. Alright. Okay. Sorry about this, friends. Novalis, I'll have to ask you to hold that for a second. Though the only thing I will guarantee you, Novalis, is that it's an uncounterable dab. Friends, do not waste your counter dabs on that one, as they will be officially wizard vetoed. Because, alright, Novalis, I see it. I understand I have to stand up and make an absolute tit of myself in a second. Currently, friends, there's a lot of miscellaneous technical problems going on right now. So I'm currently playing whack-a-mole with things. So I've got, like, one monitor there, I've got one monitor there. And I am trying to make sure that we're not going to have everything getting jiggled about. Anyway, how are you all doing, friends? Okay, so Captain Steph, when you've got time to chill and ill, we'll work out a proper day for the return to one shot. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna stop looking at the monitors. I'm gonna take a beat, take a breath. How are you all doing, friends? As I said, things are very busy and very stressful here, but not all of it bad. Sadly, I am not leading up to the announcement of Longship Game Studios, at least not yet. There is a solid prototype. I should say prototype. There's a solid GDD in the works, but currently it's an hours and a day problem. And book Watto, Mechanawell, Watto friends, hello. Oh, speaking of mechs, there's a Into the Breach style title that apparently dropped not long ago, and I can't believe I missed it. And I realise it's because, while I've been helping out a lot of friends, and there's a lot of projects that I keep on the wish list. I had missed Vox Machine or Machina, or however it's pronounced. Okay, Captain Stephanie Barnes, to be continued, friend. Oh, also, friendos, Witch Stranding. Zalavir's next title got announced. Where was it? Okay, sorry. Let me take a beat. Let me take a breath. So, WolfCrad, if you want recommendations on Gundam tools, I'm more than happy to help. But, like, especially if you're painting your stuff, the only things you really need are, like, sanding sticks and nippers. Because if you're painting it, you just want to get rid of the nubs and have them kind of flush. You have to worry about nub marks. And, like, you know, God hand nippers and stuff like that are fun, but they're not necessary, you know what I mean? I actually use the Tamiya ones. I got a bunch of stuff for airbrushing, although I'm still waiting for my primer to come in. But I also got, as my little payday treat, I got myself some new nippers. They're right good. Kimball got a little kit off of Amazon for 9 quid. Nice. That was the Mac Daddy. Oh, way cool. Mechanoel, that sounds like it will be a lot of fun. Sorry, here I am scrolling my wish list trying to find the name of this ruddy game. Here's a fun thing. Steam doesn't remove a game from your wish list once you've bought it. If it's in a state of, like, early access or the ilk. Which is very frustrating. I'll have to have a look-see in a second.
Stop that incessant clicking.
And J-Post, thank you for gifting us up to Mechanoel. Yeah. Like I said, friends, I had to get up very, very early this morning, and I've spent a large amount of my day reading some very, very complicated contracts, which is all for, you know, in the service of good things. But, oh boy. When do I get a day off? When is it Will's turn to take a break? I've described that my personal life right now can be best described as the final scenes from Amadeus, but sans any music talent. By coffee be praised. Okay. Looks like things have stabled out, which does mean that I've got to make a monstrous tit of myself for Nivalis. Alright. As the points were spent, so shall it be written. No! Albus, no! Running out of space again. I basically got this, and that's it. Oh, we're going for 3! God darn it. Fine, fine! Fucking triple kill indeed. Oh, wait, is that 4? Why are you like this? Go home! Go, no! Out of here! Six. Why are you not like this? Right, how many is that? I'm going to count them here myself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. God darn it. God feckin' darn it! Alright, feckin' 8 of these obnoxious maneuvers. I need to find more things to siphon points out of. 9, alright.
Hoppercha.
What the fuck is happening here? Ten. What is wrong with you lot? I think I've got coffee. Feckin' terrors a lot of you. So, and I guess a belated happy birthday to Cat and Steph. I guess it's is it your actual birthday, Nivalis? Fucking 10. Good at maths. Criminals, a lot of you. Every time I think you lot aren't coordinated, we have days like today. Oh, so Navalis, it was your birthday yesterday as well. All right. Well, I sincerely hope you had a cracking birthday yesterday, and to whatever it was you were celebrating number-wise, congratulations. Fuck you for starting this cacophony of dabs, you heckin' bad words. But happy birthday. I want the insults for starting this dabathon and the congratulations on your birthday to be two separate points. Because on the one, yay! On the other, alright. Ha-pa-cha! 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 Pa-cha! I think that's 6. Yeah. Ha-pa! Ha-pa-cha! I'm a professional, you know. I'm an absolute professional. I wish I could show you the stuff I was working on this morning, and to then the juxtaposition of my morning and now. Right. Are you happy now? Was this the measure that you wished for? Criminals. Criminals!
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Been a while since I was here for a Tuesday stream. And that was certainly something to come back to. What ho, everyone.
It was a birthday celebratory carnage. Not my birthday. No, Alpha, lovely to see you. How are you doing? And thank you for 41 months. To Fire Strager, to Malekith, to everybody who was celebrating sub-sprees as today was showing, I want to say another round of thank yous, because I was having a combination of complicated morning, difficult morning, technical problems morning, all kind of stacked on top of each other. So I don't think that I said a proper thank you, so I'd like to change that. Mainly because I want to tell the dab squad to go feck themselves with a spoon. Oh, and Prolo, how are you doing, friend? Watto and welcome! Right, let's start this properly. So, record scratch. It's 2 p.m. The stream starts now. To all of you of the logship, Watto and welcome!
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems
Wait,
nominal.
no. Scratch that record back a little bit more.
Manamana do do be do do manamana do 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 manamana do do be do do be do do be do do be do 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 manamana do do be do do manamana do 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 manamana do do be do do be do do be do do be do 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 do.
It sounded like Will Shatner's spoken word version of Manamana. And Favor 6, thank you for 31 months. Okay. Friends, crewmates, long-standing villains, Watto and welcome. How are you all doing?
Manamana.
Manamana. Do. And J Post, thank you for the 200 bits. So, the games industry's weird. Video games are amazing. And I've officially decided that anyone that uses the term immersion when talking about games is officially on my dweeb list.
I find this tends to affect my immersion.
It just sounds like a handheld...
Do.
You're just having your own fun today. WolfCrad, thank you for the 200 bits. Sorry, I didn't mean to immediately throw one of my my pet peeves. But what's been really interesting, I I did that thing that I do maybe every like 2 or 3 months when I watch a handful of videos made by people who have no exposure to the games industry. They don't understand the way in which games are made, the terminologies and things like that, and I try and understand as best I can the perspectives of what they're coming from. And like I said, whoever it was that added immersion to the user lexicon of ways to describe a video game, Confetti, do one.
If Will doesn't get humiliated on stream, then my feeling of immersion is ruined.
You know what? You know what, Stammering? I walked into that. But thank you for the 200. And we've got a trade. Okay. What you do with that trade is up to you. Oh, actually, that reminds me. If I...
Stop that incessant clicking.
Oh, Appareos, are you here?
Immersion.
Immersion.
That's how it sounds. It sounds like this like little pocket. I wanted to say pocket goblin, but I think goblins would be more just like happy to be there. So Appareos, Twitch has added a brand new feature. A brand new feature. Oh fuck, Guyball! Thank you for 600 bits, friend. I don't know if you heard earlier. Like, Kimball, was it yourself that sent me Rogue Tower? Because I finally got to play it last night. Because I was just exhausted and just generally broken. And it was the perfect combination of, like, not having to engage, but also having something to kind of keep my brain going. And
being able to drop bits pre-stream start completes my sense of immersion.
Never should have told you all the immersion thing. See, Kimball, I've got to then. I'll have to go back through my my Steam gifts. I used to be really good about keeping track of who was sending what, and then my life turned to shit, so I'm very behind on that. Sorry. Fearless, Kimball, Bacon, Vanderbeest.
Do what you want cause a pirate is free, you are a pirate. Yaha fiddle dee dee, being a pirate is alright to be. Do what you want cause a pirate is free, you are a pirate. You are a pirate. Yeah. We got us.
One of the great songs of our time with the worst breakdown. But Faber, thank you for the 200. You are a pirate! Okay, so Twitch have added a new feature where you can attribute emotes to individuals. So in the future, I will be able to be like, oh, this is the person that did this one, this is the person that did this one. And the vibrating big shout, which tends to get run around a fair wedge, I believe is Appareos'. So I was gonna, because the rotating dab, that one I think was secretly Robin. Well, it was a screen cap of me in a GIF simulator, but yeah. So I just, Appareos, I was going to ask your permission to try out the feature. So you didn't do the face cutout?
Meme songs, I choose you. You remind me of the babe. Power of voodoo, remind me of the babe. What babe? the babe with the power of voodoo. Voodoo. You do
You do.
remind me of the babe I saw my baby crying hard.
Okay, favour 6. Labyrinth cannot constitute meme songs because that whole film slaps. Also, finding out that the whole kinetic juggling thing with Bowie was actually done by a completely separate person with kind of like arms through Bowie's shirt doing like the kinetic juggling, which is why it has that weird kind of surreal element to it. I fucking love it. But then again, we talked about Labyrinth so much recently. And Nathaniel, good afternoon. What ho, friends? Oh, as a train screams past, and his coffee takes its hold. So, the little bit of games news that WolfCrad absolutely upsetting all of House Order's hard work with 1,000 bits. Like, $10 to keeping this whole thing going, friends, so thank you. Like, seriously. Fucking yarn. So, I can't talk about it a lot. However, my previous employer, Improbable, has just sold off the studio that made Scavengers, which was a icy battle royale title.
I think as a part of better immersion, we should use British spelling. It really puts you into the narrative.
Bravo, bravo! And Eraman, thank you for the 200 bits, friend.
Body.
But Vanderbeest, thank you for refilling the pint glass. As the chaos is evident in everyone today. Oh heck! Book says they just learned that Ailstorm didn't make You Are a Pirate. It's from Lazytown, but Ailstorm have done a cracking cover of it. And again, aside from the weird like dance breakdown bit in the middle, like, it slaps. There are a bunch of songs from Lazytown that are far better than they have any right to be. Sadly, the gentleman who played the villain, I believe Robbie Rotten, did pass away, but leaves behind the incredible We Are Number One, which should be, like, if you had to pick the anthem of the nation of ska, I would choose that over Goldfinger, over, you know, feckin' Madness, over Real Big Fish. I would choose We Are Number One. But yeah, so I can only really read comments from the press release. I worked for Improbable a few years ago, and that puts me under certain NDAs and things like that. Eurogamer revealed that the cloud technology firm Improbable had sold Midwinter Entertainment, the studio behind the multiplayer shooter Scavengers. They purchased that studio in 2019, which is 3 years ago, and they were to be the poster child for what is, and again, this is all quotes, spatial OS technology. Anyway, yeah, they've sold the company wholesale. Interesting, that.
Stop C1 good vibes, stop C1 dog grave.
Hello, hello. To the stop sign cam, Watto and welcome. sorry. Please forgive me for being very discombobulated, and thank you for the 200 bits. Just trying to catch up with the video gaming news. Had a heap of technical problems this morning, so if I seem discombobulated, that is why. I was also up stupidly early for good reason, but getting up early is a painful, painful exercise that one must be trained for. And I have a lot of training in a lot of things. That is not one of them. In terms of gaming news, friends, the joke became real today as it was officially announced that Hooked on You, the Dead by Daylight dating game featuring the killers of the title, will be coming out. Has it got a release date? And the train has passed. Sorry. Friends, I know I'm all over the fucking shop today, so thank you for chucking in for a whole ass hype train, even though I'm like Muppet flail nonsense mode. Okay. The things that are worth mentioning is that the Dead by Daylight dating sim is coming from the same developers that made the KFC dating game I Love You, Colonel Sanders. And I am looking for a launch date. Catastros, have a lovely rest of your evening, alright? Currently there isn't a Steam page up for the Dead by Daylight dating game, but it does have a real trailer. It is actually happening. So you absolute filth merchants will be getting your wish. You will be able to date the hunters from that. Wait, are they called the hunters or the monsters, or I forget what it is. Like, it's been very well documented that the Dead by Daylight community is incredibly thirsty. In fact, one of my favorite little stories recently was that the Dead by Daylight team had to make an official statement that they had not changed Pyramid Head's ass. That the community was completely sure. Killers, thank you, Orchazini. Like I said, there's a lot going on today. The Dead by Daylight community were convinced that Pyramid Head's ass had been changed between patches, reducing the size of big knifey stabs buttocks, which was false. But like, when was the last time you knew a company had to make that statement? No, we have not changed their butt. Stop asking. Okay, you know what, Alnus, that's a good point. Bayonetta. Although, the discussion of Bayonetta's behind is an interesting one, because it's between 1 and 2, it's technical, and between 2 and 3, it's possibly narrative with a spattering of time travel? So, basically, Bayonetta as a game series will be turning into hotter Doctor Who. Nathaniel, I wish them luck. Sadly, the mouse is incredibly litigious, and I don't hold hope for them, but I'm rooting for them, if you know what I mean. Appareos says that they made me a treat in Memosphere. Oh, good. Let's have a look. Dorcas, you're a terror. Appareos, thank you for that one. That is my official statement. However, some very sad news today was Ifune, the designer of Mega Man, announced his NFT collection. I don't know who's advising all these people. They need to be super fired. I believe my friend posted it as mighty number no thanks, which did make me chortle. Oh, so here's some interesting things that aren't necessarily... Alna's saying, aren't the Robot Masters not Proto-Nufters? I mean, if you defeat a Robot Master, you gain their power. If you defeat a Crypto Bro, another one takes its place. It's like a boring mayonnaise Hydra. Prolo, you are correct. Currently, at least by my understanding, I do not spend a lot of time in the cryptocurrency space, nor would I ever fucking want to. But by my understanding, a large number of cryptocurrencies are in massive freefall. One of them being Ethereum, the primary cryptocurrency for which most of the large nufters are based. One of the interesting things, though, is been trying to read between the lines on this one, because at the same time as nufters are in freefall, you'll notice that everyone's been doing their quarterly financial calls. Now, if you're unaware of these, earnings calls are... I mean, they're not too complicated. The only weird thing about them is how much of the information is public. Basically, companies reporting to their stockholders, shareholders, whatever you want to call them, as to the status of the business, you know, where the numbers are up, where the numbers are down, what's going on with that one. And because of this, we've been seeing this really fascinating doublespeak, which is like big companies, and we're going to focus on Square Enix a little bit, who sold a handful of studios for, you know, business equivalent of peanuts, and are currently talking about their successes in the nufter space. But between all the doublespeak, there's a curious little thing that Square Enix have very subtly been hinting that their goal is to start acquiring Sorry, just Moose with concept DLC for a popular rhythm game, cryptocurrency of the Necrodancer. I bet... I'm pretty sure the Necrodancer team have had that at them, because I remember Ryan Clark, who runs Brace Yourself Games, having to post that the crypt in Crypt of the Necrodancer has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. Please stop asking. Okay, so yeah, the thing that I wanted to highlight was from Square Enix's calls. They've actually been looking to acquire and established smaller studios. So, okay, here's my thoughts and feels. And I'm not just doing this because I want to say nice things about Square Enix. I'm not just doing this because I want to, you know, I want to pat, you know, one of my favorite series on the back. But what I am seeing from what I can glean of the Square Enix call is this. The nufter thing is being put front and center, as that is currently what the investment space is expecting. I personally believe that the sale of the Tomb Raider lot and what was Eidos Montreal, Crystal Dynamics, Square Enix Montreal. I think they got rid of them for being too expensive and not seeing the kind of return on investment that Square Enix want. What I think they have done is they've basically shed the fat, and their goal is going to be to establish smaller, tighter focused studios. And they keep hinting at creating new IPs, which Square Enix has kind of like a hit and miss history with a lot of them. Like Square and Capcom have this one on, two off thing when it comes to new IPs. Like they'll have two stinkers and one winner. It still boggles my mind when I think about the fact that in my heart of hearts, Kingdom Hearts is still a new IP, even though it's not.
Mine.
Hey!
Yelled him. Mine.
Sorry, Greenfire. Okay, sorry. Thank you for 1,000 bits. That's $10 to keeping us going. So thank you. But also, the Yaldum is yours. You managed to fell Shackle, which is no small feat. So, all hail the new Jarl! All hail! Sorry, how are you doing? Sorry, I should have said a proper Watto and welcome. And Lost Flowers, Watto friend. Now, Aldous, I think you and I are kind of in agreement, swapping out the studios that are barely profitable for smaller, more agile teams isn't dumb. And I have this philosophy that Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy was the ones that really made them go, nah, let's trim the fat. We can't turn these into big money makers. Because by my understanding, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game is good. It's actually good. I was prepared to write it off just based on its bland AAA nonsense, but apparently it's got some weight to it. So I'm looking forward to actually deconstructing that in the future. However, it felt like while Avengers had a core gameplay loop that was pretty interesting, it was a title that no one was asking for. It's the kind of thing that in the run-up to the Avengers movie, during that part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's hype, it would have worked very well. But at this point, there's a distance between what they were putting forward and what the public was after. And to create something that was very, very expensive to make and multiplayer focused, with some big licenses in tow. Even though the Avengers wasn't the movie Avengers, so they weren't paying likeness rights on top, they were still paying the mouse for one of its most profitable IPs. Far. Sorry, I have seen Soundful, and it looks very, very interesting. It kind of sits in that weird spot of being the games that would be great for when friends come round to just hang out, but I don't think I will be at the point where friends just get to come round and hang out for a very long time. So it's not that I'm ignoring Soundful, it's that it represents something that I can't have right now. Yeah, Prolo, Final Fantasy XIV is still a banger, and I don't just mean that the game is good. Final Fantasy XIV is still making money, and that probably is one of the reasons why those three studios have been kicked to the curb. Because Final Fantasy as a brand does gangbusters, and Final Fantasy XIV has been selling incredibly well. The brand and licensing deals alone around 14 are doing great. And so when you compare something like that to something like Tomb Raider, which is a very expensive, it's a very expensive property to create. There's a lot around it, but I can understand their thinking. Now, on the flip side of that, the fact that Square Enix couldn't turn Tomb Raider into money boggles my tiny mind. I'm gonna change the title of the game to Games Industry Banter, as we probably won't be jumping back into One Shot today, just because it was a request by Captain Stephanie Barnes, who isn't able to be here for the stream proper. and I really want to chat with you lot about these topics because I love deconstructing them. Plus, as I said, I've been doing the masochistic thing of listening to... I mean, okay, I'll just be plain with you. YouTube bros talking about video games who have no grounding in games industry talk, which is a thing that I do every few months. One, to remind myself that it's not... that we're not on the wrong path. And the other being to try to understand where the uneducated viewpoints are coming from and learn how better to help bring those people kind of into the fold. I mean, I think it's entirely okay to blame Placeholder. If they'd stop cancelling on us, it would be great. It'd be really great. I see WolfCrad, Record Scratch. That's the difference between production and licensing. And I don't mean to pick on you. So, Games Workshop do a great job with what's called micro-licensing, where instead of licensing huge swaths to companies, they license little bits and pieces, which allows loads more game devs to create games and properties based on both Warhammer Fantasy Battles and not just Warhammer 40,000, the board game, but everything around it. And it's very powerful. Companies like EA have a history of mismanagement. That's not unfair to say. And they struggle to handle their large IPs because of how they focus on the big AAA sales. Like, EA has had internal indie initiatives in the past that gave us things like Grow Home, Valiant Hearts, Child of Light, Untangled. Like, EA's not incapable of, but this is one of those times where you, like, understanding the difference between these huge amorphous blobs. There was, at one point inside EA, a tiny team responsible for indie publishing that did great work. What happened to them? We won't know, because the obfuscation of big companies is that unless you are inside or know people, it's very hard to know why the pieces got moved around. You know, I'm still trying to find some concrete evidence on why EA kept trying to sink. Was it the team that make Apex Legends and that did the previous... This is my remembering hand gesture. Titanfall. Like, for some reason, EA kept trying to scupper Titanfall, and I still don't know why. Respawn. Hamsternator and Comp, thank you. That's what I was trying to remember. But the self-sabotage is evident, and when it comes to a company like EA, quite possible. The only example I can really give you is like some like secondhand info on games like Brutal Legend, where the spiraling costs created a situation where EA as a whole became very nervous and therefore ramped up the marketing to offset the fears that they felt were coming from the title. And in doing so, continued to push the sales predictions even higher. So, and again, this is all third-hand information, me extrapolating from what I know of the situation. None of this is like chipped into stone fact, but by my understanding. When Brutal Legend was pitched as a game, it was pitched with a certain amount of predicted sales for their break-even. But then, as EA got nervous, they increased the amount of advertising and spend on it, which increased the amount of copies that it would need to shift, well beyond what had initially been pitched. Thus creating this kind of like loop back where more and more advertising was being spent to make up for the ever-escalating costs. And this is something we definitely saw with Anthem. Like, yo. Now, if you compare Anthem to Apex Legends and the marketing campaigns that those two projects got, that's a whole fun one to deconstruct. If I were a gambling man, which I'm not, I would bet money that Apex Legends was supposed to die on the vine. Apex Legends was supposed to go out and be another Battle Royale game that just kind of like popped up and went, hello, and then just died. And it didn't. It was a massive success. And I think that's what put it into a weird space that the EA public relations machine has spun up after its success, but in spite of it. I mean, Clank, it's one of those things where what Anthem needed was another year of development. What they did was sent it out early with a ridiculous marketing budget. Like, you don't pay Neil Blomkamp. You don't pay Mr. Feckin' District 9 to make you a live action trailer if you are confident that your project is going to do well. Okay, that's not strictly true. Ubisoft do this thing where as their projects do better, they tend to do more creative stuff with their marketing, and that does come from the fact that their sequelization tends to result in more copies sold than the last, except with a misstep. So, you know what? That's not strictly true, but there is something of the hype marketing that is put forward when publishers become nervous about whether or not a project's going to sell. This is why we don't pre-order. Like, this is why you do not buy games until the game is out, because it's not going to help the devs. Like, it's one of those situations where if the game succeeds from a big, chunky hype market, the game will kind of be overlooked. The marketing and publishing teams will get the pat on the back. But none of that success will be attributed to the development team in a big studio environment. Whereas if you pick it up on day one, at that point the title is out, like the work has been done. Also, pre-ordering in a digital age. Oh yes, Moose. The choice for them to get to buy Frostbite proper definitely. Oh no! Don't you feckin' dare! Okay, now we're good. I thought we were gonna have another. We're good. Anyway, the reason I wanted to touch on this was just because it's been interesting to see that a large proportion of commenters in the space keep focusing on Square Enix talking about nerfters and aren't focusing on what they're actually doing. And this is one of those things that's been very, very frustrating. Speaking of the Dead by Daylight team, they took a big hit when their in-game model was used for an NFT, despite the fact that it not being anything to do with them. And the company that licenses out these old horror properties have their own Nufta branch, right? They're actually the company responsible for licensing and, to an extent, publishing the new Evil Dead game. But they did a very good job by obfuscating their NFT company as a completely separate thing. So, I still don't know how to feel about the new Evil Dead game. Like, I do not believe the developers are involved with it, but... Oh yeah, Biggs! There is a Dead by Daylight dating sim coming out, made by the same team that did the Colonel Saunders dating game. And the fact that the joke is real makes me very happy. We've talked about this a bunch of times, but when it comes to April Fool's Day, that's what we want. That's what we want. You know? There we go. I got rid of my speed bump. sort of. Oh, I need to get me undershave done. It's just something that I thought was very, very interesting. Yeah, see, and Appareos, that's one of those ones where it's the complication of the industry as a whole. Because, like, the devs, by my understanding, haven't done anything. But their assets may end up getting used for nufters if the publishing company continues to go that route. So... I mean, I'm only still mad about it because I have friends who work over on Dead by Daylight who got a lot of flack for something that had nothing to do with them. But the company who threw them into hot water basically just left it. There was no like, oh, actually, don't worry, it's all over here. They just let the Dead by Daylight team languish. I thought that was a big old jerk. A big old jerk move. But we'll see what happens. Capcom scaled back their Street Fighter esports licensing stuff. Still not great, but better. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes at Capcom right now, but what a lot of people are talking about is Warner Brothers' upcoming game. What's it, like Multiverse Mash? The game with Shaggy in it, let's be honest. Multiverses, Alpha, Appareos, thank you kindly. Everybody I know whose opinion I trust in fighting games is talking about it very favorably. Like, it's bright, it's colourful, it's interesting, there's a lot of variety, and while a lot of it's quite mimetic, there's a certain... Someone said that there's a great understanding of the characters to allow for the amount of humour that's being put in, which is kind of cool. You know, I mean, Salen's Shaggy's Super Smash is pretty much what it is in my head. And yeah, they're leaning into Ultra Instinct Shaggy very hard, but that shows a certain understanding of the space, which is very interesting. And Warner Brothers has worked with companies like Evo and has done tournaments and stuff like that in the past. You know, Mortal Kombat, Injustice, etc. Like, those are titles that are known in the scene, so they have the contacts into those spaces. Like, Nickelodeon's Brawler game seems very fun. By my understanding, they've really suffered from balancing problems and being able to patch it fast enough for the interest that, sadly, the Nickelodeon Brawl might have missed its window. Nintendo doesn't want to deal with tournaments and things right now. They probably won't for another, 4 or 5 years. So that does mean that there's a potential for this to move into that space. And with Capcom fucking it up royally with Street Fighter 6, I'm very much reminded of StarCraft 2 in this situation. For those of you who don't know, so StarCraft is feckin' massive. To the extent that it is now, I'm not sure. But StarCraft Brood War is huge. And was a nationally televised event in South Korea. This is a thing that you probably know if you've even been tangentially around, the internet, that esports were a thing in South Korea long before everybody else, in a proper degree as well. And Blizzard were sure as houses that releasing StarCraft 2, balancing it to a competitive level, even creating 2 different sets of stats and abilities and units. Okay, not too different, but different enough so that the single player experience could be a narrative focused with some big chunky, sometimes silly elements, and that the multiplayer would be tight and focused was great. But in their hunger, in their enthusiasm to get StarCraft 2 into the same place as StarCraft 1, they went with some very aggressive licensing. Now, I'd need to go back through the varying documents and what to be able to tell you specifically what those conditions were. But by my understanding, streaming StarCraft 2 on national television was very expensive, with the kind of licensing agreements that Blizzard wanted to put in place. And so what happened? A bunch of telly companies just didn't. They just kept going with Brood War and StarCraft. And it's weird seeing Capcom making similar mistakes so long after. You know, Street Fighter has been a main staple of not just fighting games, but video games as a whole. And so it's weird to see them going down this very strange route. Appareos was adding that StarCraft 1 was and continues to be huge. Okay. It took forever for a majority of the competitive players to filter over to 2, mostly because that's where the money went. Eventually. They were also one of the only companies I saw that locked their VODs behind a subwall. That was not a great start. No. Would you like a completely pointless fact, dear friends? A completely pointless fact. When Game of Thrones was at its max, HBO weren't making the largest amount of money off of subscriptions. I mean, they obviously were in like North America and places like that. But have you ever noticed that at its peak, Game of Thrones was an international sensation, yet HBO was not available worldwide? By my understanding, and obviously on this Twitch.television, we would never, ever condone pirating television shows. Never at all. But by my understanding, the money from Game of Thrones came from licensing deals and merch. They weren't making money hand over fist on people watching this ongoing saga. You know, they were making money off of people buying, like, you know, the North Remembers t-shirts, or, you know, fucking dragons being cool statues. I don't know. It's been a long time. I'm eventually going to try and do a rewatch of Game of Thrones, because I still think there are some great nuggets in there to be deconstructed, but that's not the time. Yeah, Salem, speaking of properties that are involved in multiverses, you can have Bugs Bunny and Arya Stark teaming up. Brilliant. Let's go. It was very strange watching Space Jam 2 and seeing quite how many properties Warner Brothers has access to, but that's another thing. Now, Book, in terms of that, I couldn't possibly comment, but I could say that having the biggest share of the international culture space and being able to accommodate those individuals with t-shirts, mugs, merch, collectibles, etc., is a better business model than trying to nickel and dime individuals at the point of experience. And if Street Fighter as a property is struggling to make money, someone is fucking up somewhere. Like, I know they've done like little cool licensing deals here and there, but like, we should be... Street Fighter, as a property that has existed for as long as it has, should be making vomit-inducing amounts of money on merchandise, mugs, hoodies. I mean, up there's my comfy hoodie. This isn't even an official Capcom product. This is a sub-licensed product. And unfortunately it's covered in dog hair, and it's been my comfy hoodie for a long time, so when I'm not feeling 100%. But yeah, so this is Capcom licensed, but created by another team. And check this out. It's my embroidered Akuma hoodie. Like, that's not print on, that's embroidered. And we've got the old classic on the back and stuff like that. I don't think I can get this again. Why not? You know, as the kids who grew up worshipping these games in the arcade, you know, as we become professionals with disposable income, like, these properties become part of us. So how come they can't turn that into money? Anyway. I know Evo's always been one that struggled to make cash, but Capcom, what are you doing? You know, you're already the king. How do you keep fucking this up? So yeah, Capcom's made a bunch of changes to their weird Street Fighter 6. Like, there was a whole bunch of things like sponsorship limits and the limitations on, what was it, the free community license. And it was just like... there was so much weirdness to it. Salem's like, hey, at least Evo is owned by Sony now. What could go wrong? Whoo! Oh, Cryo Sticks. Sorry, Cryo Sticks was joking with Capcom. What are you doing? Is most of the fighting game genre. Look, seriously, Capcom has like a 1 in 3 record. If you look at their like blocks of games, it'll be 2 naff ones and 1 banger. I mean, were all the spin-off games that Capcom made good? No. Was Puzzle Fighter good? Fuck yes. Was every Darkstalkers game good? No. I think the second one, that was a banger. And I'm saying this as someone who played all the Darkstalkers games, alright? God. And there is also an interesting thing that... Appareos, no, there's nothing wrong at Sony right now. Look, there's so much that they're fucking up right now. Friends, this is another one of those situations where I don't... Shit's bad. Shit's on fire. I don't believe in ignoring the bad stuff, and I don't believe that, you know, we should actively seek to be ignorant in these elements. I don't have the feckin' spoons to tackle. I mean, if I was toppling anything, I wouldn't say it on Twitch.television. But I don't have the spoons to tackle the ways in which Sony is being fucking idiot right now. So I'm just gonna wizard veto that for now. Just Sony, the fuck are you doing? Okay. Now, jumping back in, so Lost Flower says they still don't forgive the latest Marvel vs. Capcom game. I mean, for that one, like, I'd say blame the mouse as much as Capcom. Although it's fascinating to imagine how cheaply Capcom were able to gain the license to X-Men and the Avengers back in the day. Like, just the iconography of Iron Man would cost several times more than it costs to make Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Do you know what I mean? Like, the world has changed. Appareos is saying I may need a wizard emote. But how do we do a wizard with, like, the big cross on it? Like, wizard veto. Now, Book, I think it's an interesting conversation. I don't know enough about The Expanse. That is to say, how it made its money. I watched it on Amazon. It's a cracking show, but it was interesting that the Sci-Fi Channel couldn't get it to make cash. That's another one of those ones that I think about a lot. Anyway, what was I talking about? I mean, a lot of this is kind of fascinating to discuss because, I mean, Book, who was it saying? Sorry, Alanos was mentioning Resident Evil as a franchise. Now, you should know by now, I'm feckin' obsessed with Resident Evil. Not as much as I used to be, but that knowledge still remains. Like, I've not played through all of the newest Resident Evil game. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if it's a thing that we're going to do here, or if I'm going to do it in my downtime, when I finally have downtime. But I have played almost every Resident Evil game. That includes Gaiden on the Game Boy, both of the light gun games. I played the PS2 Resident Evil game that was meant to be multiplayer, but the PlayStation 2's architecture was such a shit show that the first one was just kind of there. And while the second one did have multiplayer on, that's a whole other kettle of monkeys. Like, I've played Code Veronica through more times than I care to count. And one thing that was really fascinating was that until Resident Evil 6, Capcom did a great job in making cracking mainline Resident Evil titles, and then using the IP to do experimental titles to kind of like feel out the different spaces. You know, what was really fascinating was, whilst Resident Evil 4 was in development of doing Code Veronica on the Dreamcast and stuff like that, I thought that was very clever. So the idea being is that if Resident Evil 4 had stacked it, they had a traditional Resident Evil game, tank controls and all, but just with better graphics to work on. So they kind of had two branches, and Code Veronica didn't do as well. I love Code Veronica as a game, but it did all right, you know? And then Resident Evil 4 dropped as part of Capcom's GameCube setup and sold good, and continued to sell great on all its future releases. Well, so Hamsonator, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. It's just the only reason why I do tend to focus on games or games adjacent companies is, you know, I prefer to talk about what I know. I mean, I'm always happy to hear, thoughts and feels from other industries and stuff like that. Netflix is doing apparently 2 new Resident Evil shows that look fascinating. And honestly, like, the adaptation and readaptation of Resident Evil as a franchise is something I'm entirely fine with, because, you know, it continued the tradition of zombie media even when zombies were not cool in the gaming space. I mean, hell, they were responsible for coining survival horror as a terminology, which are fascinating subset of games to talk about. To Swordsman, Watto and welcome. Hello. And the business development of things like that is very interesting. But, you know what? Let's jump it back to Capcom, because Capcom do have a unique challenge. They do have a unique challenge, which is Capcom have struggled to make the same kind of money as other games at their weight category. Street Fighter, for a time, was arguably more well-known than things like League of Legends and stuff like that. Now, obviously, that's changed, but, you know, there was a Street Fighter movie in international cinemas. You know, it's a part of culture. But the games themselves never made bank. Like, they were always iconic. Street Fighter 4 did very, very well. Annoyed a lot of people by having multiple releases, which they said they weren't going to do in 5, and then they did anyway. But, like, if you line Street Fighter up against other titles that have the same share of the public consciousness, it doesn't make the same kind of bank. So Capcom's always struggled in a way to turn the games themselves into money. I would argue they have not succeeded, but it could be that Street Fighter V's infinite costume and character releases have made more bank than previous titles. I'd need to speak to someone who really knew. By my understanding, Street Fighter V has been alright. A lot of pro players were against it. They played it anyway because of prize pools and elements like that, but I could be wrong. But the unique challenges that Street Fighter faces is things that Capcom doesn't. Thing is, Resident Evil 1, whether you play the OG version with the live-action cutscenes, the GameCube remake, what have you, it's an experience. It's a little time capsule, if you will. You sit down, you play it, that is the experience for you. Fighting games change. The experience changes with a lot of multiplayer titles. You know, game drops, the meta becomes understood, the point-counterpoint of competitive play unfurls. But it's still in that capsule because a large proportion of the iconic games from Capcom dropped the same time. Dropped at a time where articulation wasn't possible. You know, good old Street Fighter 3. I mean, there were like, what, 3-4 versions of that? And it wasn't just like with classic Street Fighters, where it was an addition of characters and settings. You know, the difference between the different Third Strike branches, like those characters and changes are a huge difference. By the end of it, like, a Street Fighter 3 Third Strike became encapsulated as like the peak of technical play. And just to bring non-Street Fighter nerds up to speed, one of the big reasons behind that was the parry system. That you can parry any attack in Street Fighter 3 if you're good enough. If you tap forward at the exact moment of impact, I believe, or is it just if you tap block at the perfect moment, rather than taking a little bit of chip damage and getting pushed back, you parry, which means you take no damage, and the other person is frozen for, I believe it's either a single frame, which, if you know fighting games, can be the difference between make or break. Now, the Daigo Unleash the Beast moment spawned from that wonderful system and created arguably one of the most iconic moments in fighting games. Because it's so easy to understand when you watch it, and it's so iconic, and you've got the crowd going ballistic. Like, it was this perfect little storm of a moment. You know, I hear stories about people that were there, you know? My friend once called it video games moon landing moment, and you know what? I wouldn't disagree. Each Street Fighter game has to be held up to the last one. And that is very difficult. The Resident Evil games, the narrative carries through, the thematics carry through, with a chance of re-improvement. But with Streety, each game you make is being held up against the peak of the others. Oh yeah, Lost Flowers. We could probably speak for hours about things people disliked from Street Fighter 5. Sage Bell, do no worry. I probably would have sent you like 5 million messages being like, Sage Bell, don't leave me alone. I don't know what I'm doing today. Also, how are you doing? Well, Cryosticks, that is understandable. Not everyone has the full games literacy, but I still think that the Daigo moment is great because it shows enough context that even if you've never seen video games before, the reaction that everybody has gives people enough. Phyllis, I remember those days. Oh, and Rikami was just adding that the red parry, the maneuver that Daigo does, is what you need to do a parry from a block or a previous parry, and it has a 3-frame window. So your timing has to be perfect. One of the things I really enjoyed was I think it was the 360 re-release of Third Strike, which was very, very good, and had training modes, including the Daigo moment. You could practice to learn how to do that. And God, that reaction to gaming culture is the kind of stuff that I love. Kind of like StarCraft 2's arcade mode, but that's another story. So, Yeah, so it probably feels like I'm unfairly going on about Street Fighter 6 and Capcom right now, but the incredibly restrictive esports licensing stuff they put up is so reminiscent of what happened with StarCraft 2, on top of the game which is going to be a follow-up to a very divisive title. You know? It's kind of like if Resident Evil 7 had really super strict rules on what you're allowed to stream or show or how you're allowed to play. Like, if you found out about that before you got to play the game, it would set people's teeth on edge, right? Okay. Now, friends, it's worth saying that Appareos has worked in esports as a space. So if it feels like I'm focusing on his comments, Appareos would be one of the people I would go to speak to about this topic. And so Appareos is adding that Capcom is really up against time too. Their last fighting title flopped. And I quote, Street Fighter V was always okay, but never great. Anime fighters are much better now, and Riot is going to be dropping Project L. Yup. And to agree with Appareos, if Project L ends up being free, Multiverses will also be free, and the messaging leading into Street Fighter 6 has been bad. It would be difficult for them to fit into a space at a $60 price point when Project L and Multiverses are free. And it's not fair. Like, Street Fighter 6 has so much weight on its back. You know, it is Capcom's flagship product. It is internationally known. It is the glue that essentially holds the fighting game community together, arguably. And because 5 has had a poor reception, they're fighting against that negative reception with a sequel. The thing about Project L, and if you don't know what that is, Project L is Riot's League of Legends fighting game. If Project L's not good, everyone's going to be like, it was an interesting dice roll. You know, like, I'm glad you tried. That was pretty cool. But if it succeeds, then it will rock face. So there's little to no expectation. I should say there's little to no pressure on Project L to succeed, outside of internal pressure, obviously. But the potential for success is massive, and the likelihood that it will be free. And so you put together this situation where here's a $60 price point title with a very restrictive esports licensing agreement, and then Riot's over here being like, free? And obviously Project L will have its own licensing agreements for esports stuff, but that hasn't been announced ahead of time. They're not having to fight against any negative perception. Now, Salem is adding, based on their time with Rising Thunder, there's no way they bet against Project L. No. Sorry, just a quick point. Lost Flowers says, also pour one out for Justin Wong, who has been haunted by the same parry ever since. Yeah. He's got real Second Man on the Moon vibes, if you know what I mean. Like, he was there, but... Rikami's saying, no one is assuming anything for Project L, yet everyone is saying it will save fighting games. Yes. And if it doesn't, no one's going to be mad. Like, it's just culturally at the right time. So I agree with what Appareos is saying. Street Fighter 6 has got to beat Project L to market and be fucking great. Making a good game is hard. Making a great game is sometimes just lightning in a bottle. So I really feel for them, you know what I mean? Oh, poor Artifact. Sorry, just Cryostic's mentioning that... I nearly peed! That's my boy!
We had a totally good outside. We went outside where he was like, oh, yo, he's wagging his tail. Come inside and he's like...
I mean, we can leave it open a little if it'll help. Once we can get all this out, then we can put...
No, he's just being scared for no reason.
Baby boy. Yeah, doggos in your area want to talk. Sorry, what were we talking about? Oh, sorry, Alna's just saying the games of service style would be a good fit, with the caveat that good games of service style will be needed and Capcom might not be able to step up to that. Possibly? Again, I don't envy them with the amount of baggage they have to bring to the table, you know what I mean? So I think those were the major game things to talk about. Appareos mentioned that we might be getting an Attack on Titan crossover for Dead by Daylight that looks kind of cool. I can't wait till Attack on Titan officially comes to a close in sometime around the heat death of the universe. Now, Appareos, you do make a very good point. Street Fighter 6 being a free-to-play title would be a smart play because the goodwill that it'll get them would definitely offset... Because Street Fighter 5 is a games of service model, right? Hang on. Let's just... Okay, so as of right now, let's see what the price point is for... so Street Fighter 5... Oh, God. So Street Fighter 5 is kind of $20, but not. And the thing is, I can't work out from Steam specifically what is and is not the thing. But I can tell you that on Steam, if you wanted to buy all the additional content for Street Fighter 5, without discount, it would cost you $225. And that is four season character passes. Also, somebody fecked up on their naming convention, and that person needs to go in the sin bin and think about what they did. Ninja's saying, if you don't got internet, you get less characters. If you have internet, you can play them all. It does lead to a bunch of massive questions. Yes, that is not a small number, that is a big number. Sorry, where were we? Oh yes, Streety. It's interesting to be in a time when we may see a big old shake-up of the fighting game space, and I'm okay with that. What's going to be fascinating is seeing how the Summer of Chaos is going to affect things, like with the reintroduction to Evo and stuff like that. Like with a lot of the games of service model stuff, I would not advise them launching this summer, that's for bloody sure. But then again, this winter will be jam-packed. So... No, sorry. Summer of Chaos. Summer of Chaos is my own personal theory. So, touch wood, things are getting better, right? We've all been indoors for 2.5 years. That sucks. That sucks badly. But, in theory, more people will be able to go outside and do things this summer. And I think that's going to result in a lot of mental and internal pressure being released. People just going hard. I call it the Summer of Chaos because I think those that imbue of the alcohol and the devil's lettuce and the ilk are going to go hard this summer. Which I think is going to lead to a downturn in video game sales and the like. Yeah, Alpha, like, just... I'm trying... Yeah. So, the reason I bring this up is that we may see we may see a return to in-game fighting game events and meetups and hangouts and things like that. Now again, I know you're a smart bunch of mother hubbards. I personally will be staying masked up for quite some time, if only just to avoid colds and bad times, but the possibility that I can go to an event and see a bunch of people, like, I've got to admit, there's a little part of me that's like, oh, well, I want to go do the thing. And I do think this is going to have a knock-on effect on game sales and a whole bunch of things in the digital ecosystem. But fighting games sit in that weird point where the most engaged core of the fighting game community do physically meet up. They hang out. They go and see each other like people, weirdos. And that solid core is what a large proportion of the external world sees. And she had Watto, friend. Yes, Appareos. Although I found out there's no bar at Gamers Heaven. How am I going to survive? I did not get this far as a functioning alcoholic. But sorry, that's neither here nor there. I'm joking. The Summer of Chaos will positively, potentially affect fighting games in that space. So, how will this translate to effect on Street Fighter? See, the thing is, if we go to an event and we have internet, we have a very different version of Street Fighter 5 than if we don't, you know? Like, this is going to be an interesting transition time for a medium that its peak competitive play is in person. Aw, way cool. Appareos. Yeah. Okie dokie Lokis. I mean, I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts and feels, friends. Like, the thing about, especially the times that we are living in, is that it's pretty much just theory crafting at this stage. A lot of us expected things to be very different around lockdown, its effects, and how things unfurled. And I would have never guessed that the titles that became massively successful aren't ones I would have guessed. And it's nice to see, you know. We've seen the success of a lot of experiential games, a lot of group games. And I've not been able to keep up with how the fighting game community has reacted to being stuck indoors for 2 years. Rikami was mentioning the old thing of like people constantly talking about, you know, netcode this, netcode that. One of those fascinating things that's incredibly complicated, yet every user has a very, very strong opinion on it. But that has been one of the big deciding factors for the space, you know. It sucks, net player's ass, roll back netcode for life. But I see you, spooky ghost. I think I don't see that. One thing that's been really interesting is seeing how the shift to the online space. All right. So now this is very shamanistic. So to those of you that spend a lot of time in fighting game communities, please correct me if I'm wrong here. But from my weird little shamanistic digital hut in the internet, I've noticed this interesting thing. Whilst... Oh god, the boy has chosen whilst... Sorry, Amos completely scared the feck out of me. Good thing we're not playing scary games today. Street Fighter's grasp on fighting games as a whole has loosened, and one of the reasons why is because of the move away from physical events. See, the thing is, like, back in the day, a fighting game meetup pretty much meant a bunch of people playing Street Fighter, a few people playing Tekken, and then, I don't know, whatever weird random thing somebody brought along. There'd usually be an argument about which particular which particular Street Fighter we'd be playing, but that would be the core. And essentially that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You play Street Fighter because that's what everybody in the meet is playing. And if you want to get good, you go home, you practice, you bring it on over. The only reason I'm good at playing Tekken is because that's what we played at Sega. Like, I never played Tekken before I worked at Sega QA, but that was the thing we played. And then I got into it. And then I got a custom fight stick, which was really cool. It was weeby as hell. It was like a Bleach before Bleach nosedived. So it was like a... Yeah, anyway. With that physical interaction removed and moving into digital communities, especially ones like ours, where we're not focused around a specific title, that kind of opened up the, hey, do you want to try this thing? At the same time as the Guilty Gear team have just been putting out banger after banger after banger. So the core reinforcing feedback loop of Street Fighter is removed. And then this swath of interesting and fun and really fucking cool games are all dropping at the same time. Like, I do personally believe that's one of the things that's led to Guilty Gear's like increase in popularity. Because friends, Guilty Gear's not new. Guilty Gear was fucking great back in the PlayStation era. Like, OG Guilty Gear, holy shit was it good. Mechanically, it was like a delicious evolution on Street Fighter where every character had a quirk or a twist or a something, you know? And especially as that series progressed, they really evolved the mechanics around each person. The mechanics around each character to feel like unique systems. But, like, Guilty Gear was still in the back of everybody's mind until the last, like, few iterations. I feel that it's not just the caliber of the games that has increased. I feel it's this gap opportunity as fighting games have ceased to have one great king. And Alice, that is a very good point. Digital distribution does help with availability, combined with Steam's like couch co-op, which isn't something you can use for competitive play, but for showing somebody a new thing. Like, we used it for, what was it? Samurai Gun, which was fine. Like, I wouldn't make anybody play that proper, but it worked. It did the job. And I think that was very powerful, you know? Oh, shit. I mean, that's another one of the things I'm lamenting is I've completely dropped off the tournament scene for Samurai Gun. Can I have some more hours in a day? Yeah, Salem, we did Tekken 7. I don't know how good Tekken 7 is to play with that Steam share feature, because I'm a bit of a monster. Not massive, but I'm a bit of a monster when it comes to Tekken. I've played a lot. Sorry, apologies for kind of like... So, Alnus, that's a very good point in the digital distribution that I want to touch on, because for those of us who are like 2D fighting game aficionados, there was something of an elitism. Like, it wasn't just that Last Blade was a good game. Could you get a copy of it? King of the Fighters always suffered in that regard, that it was so difficult to acquire. Even the ones that got... like English language releases and things like that, It always felt like King of the Fighters was so hard to find. Sorry, my brain was just trying to remember like all of the weird PlayStation era fighting games we got. And then my brain got stuck on, what was it? Energerts or whatever it's called. Bless the Ring. The Square fighting game that was sold on the premise that it had Cloud from fucking Final Fantasy VII in it. Or that bizarrely weird, messed up Star Wars fighting game. Jurassic Park, Warzone, Bloody Roar. Okay. Bloody Roar's gotta come back at some point. Like, someone must know they're sitting on like a chunk of money. Rikami, I have actually played Sailor Moon on the NES. Along with the both the G Gundam and Gundam Wing fighting games. Wait, no. Gundam Wing was PS1? The one I haven't played is the one that Game Grumps played that had Big Zam in it. Sorry, Sailor was saying Bloody Roar was hard as soft. Konami bought up all their IPs. On the one hand, I'm happy to see the Yu-Gi-Oh game doing very well. On the other, the fact that it has caused Konami to make a crap load of money so they could just keep failing at everything else. Like, a lot of us were quietly hoping that Konami's massive losses in the pachinko space would cause them to either start selling IPs or start being smarter about their video game stuff. But no. I mean, Rikami, thankfully, we don't have to worry about Bloody Raw Pachinko. Because Pachinko is a... So far as I understand, it's not just the obvious, which is that a worldwide pandemic meant people did not want to be in tight, sweaty little box spaces, putting ball bearings into machines. But also, people haven't returned. As it was explained to me, and don't take this as gospel, but the theory is sound, is that a lot of people who were pachinko players have moved on to digital games now. Now, legally, pachinko isn't gambling. It just so happens that the tickets you get from winning pachinko can be taken to a separate location and exchanged for goods and, I don't know if directly money, but definitely things. I mean, Lost Flowers, everyone keeps kind of being like, yo, what's up with Darkstalkers? Like, feckin' Felicia Morgana are iconic Capcom characters, and yet Darkstalkers more when, please? And Lost Flowers, I haven't had the chance to try the new iteration of Killer Instinct, but I love the fact... Wait, was there a new version of Killer Instinct? I thought there was. Yeah, because the Battletoads were in it, right? Right? Yeah. I actually haven't had a chance to try the newest Killer Instinct, other than, like, play it once or twice at a fighting game meetup. Oh yeah, and Rikami, we've definitely talked about Mick Gordon's OST and going hard. I was just nice to see him getting featured in Sea of Thieves. God. And friends, I hope you don't mind me going so hard on discussions about fighting games, because fighting games are such a strange beast of ours. Like, pretty much everything else that was arcade focused is dead now. Like, light gun games. I believe the House of the Dead remake's been released to zero fanfare. Racing games, I mean, we get like Yaforza, and we've got a couple of like hyper-realistic, but comparable to the breadth and depth that we used to get back in the day. It's just not happening anymore. What are some of the other main staples from the arcades? I'm trying to think. Oh, sorry, Lord Traden. Let me explain my workings out there, because I may have skipped a step. What I mean is, back in the day, the console, the arcade would be the place to play the game. It was quite often to have a selling point that it looks as good as the arcade as part of your pitch, essentially. And that's kind of dissipated. I mean, arcades are very niche now, and there are so few things that translate from arcade to home experience. It's pretty much just fighting games, and that's it. You know? And while, like Ninja, rhythm games are still well and alive, I do see, again, a big differentiation between rhythm games that are played in the home and rhythm games that are played in arcades. I mean, Lost Flowers, if you want to start throwing some stones, where is our GameCube version of F-Zero re-release? And to Skadi, Watto, and welcome once more. So Skadi, we were going to do one shot today. We were going to re-spend some time with lovely little Nico, and then it's been technical and personal problem bonanza over here. So we've honestly just started hanging out, you know? Sagebell was saying you tend to see the mobile games as arcade again. God. I think I know the ones that you mean. Lagmeister, the question I'd ask you was, what was the last DDR arcade cabinet to be released? Because DDR is a huge part of gaming culture and the arcade scene. But, like, DDR's Konami, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah, and like I'd have to wiki that nonsense to think. Yeah, it's been Supernova since 2006. Like, apparently there was a 20th anniversary cabinet released in 2019. I mean, Skadi, the good news is there can be no chapters if there's no game. So I guess it makes it easier for you. And friends, for those who don't know, Skadi is the one who's been handling all of the YouTube uploads for here, and all of the chapters and all of the additional stuff that has made it not a miserable slog to watch VODs on YouTube. Oh, Sagebell was saying like Fruit Ninja. Okay. So, Fruit Ninja is also a weird one because it's essentially a licensed family element. Okay, I feel I've half explained my point here. Not that I think any of you lot are wrong. And I'm not talking about the viability of arcades. What I'm saying is that there are very few games that still exist where the arcade is a focal point of the experience. Fighting games are pretty much it. And I find that fascinating. Like, the arcades have grown beyond what they were, which was the place to play games. Now, arcades are essentially experiential. Someone mentioned, like, The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead light gun game, you have, like, these little plastic crossbows, and there's, like, jets of air, and this, like, 4D thing going on, and it's fun. It's not something that you would play and play again. It's an experience, you know. You're gonna pop, you know, $4 or $5 in. You're gonna play that thing for like 5 or 10 minutes, and you're gonna have a great time. But beyond beyond a wish to see the end of that title, or beyond a personal attachment to either the experience or the IP, there isn't much reason to return to it. And Magmeister, you're right. Arcades have specialty controls. The novelty controller spree has somewhat come to a close. A lot of people theorized that as consoles started moving more and more to USB input devices, we'd see a new spree of custom peripherals. That seems to basically have been kiboshed by the movement control space. And again, this is theory crafting now. Right now, I'm just sorting through the runes and the bones. But it seems that the motion control era of video games basically killed the custom controller space. I mean, Vanderbeest, Steel Battalion. It's easy to forget. Steel Battalion didn't sell good. It was very expensive. It had a core peripheral. It was not based on the core IP. It was a very Japanese game releasing on a new piece of hardware. Like, I remember the time when it wasn't uncommon to find a bunch of Steel Battalion controllers in the back of your local game store. Now they've become a coveted piece of equipment, but they are not... Like, imagine if the Steel Battalion controller had just been straight plug-in USB. Something like that came out now. And there are some companies that are doing things like that for flight sticks and for, you know, driving simulators and things like that. But, you know, we haven't gotten an open source version of the Steel Battalion controller yet. And I can understand why. It's a huge manufacturing cost up front. And the video game sphere of giant robot fandom is incredibly nebulous when it comes to spending money. Oh, and Jafar James, a good afternoon. Watto and welcome. But yeah, so again, friends, I wasn't arguing against the viability of arcades. They're a different thing now. You know, it's a place to go and spend... You know what? I was just about to say a bunch of really asinine stuff, so I'm just going to wind it back. And I feckin' love them. There's something... I grew up as a kid who did not have access to arcades, and so I grew up coveting them. You know, when all video game advertising is around, like, you know, is this an arcade game getting a home console version that's kind of naff? Or is this as good as the arcade? Like, that used to be a huge point of pride for a title. And now, the arcade's its own strange little weird beast. That's alright. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, the ability to even be in the premise of a single arcade machine was a huge undertaking back in the day. So I've developed a real love and obsession with them. I used to go with a group of friends to the basically the arcade game trade show every year in London. But it's worth mentioning that wasn't just machines, that it was also like fruit machines, gambling machines, all sorts. They actually used to split the hall into gambling and non-gambling. And if you wore a suit, you could go get free drinks to the gambling side. So you used to get lashed to then go play free DDR for hours. Yeah. But, I mean, Analnus, I know you don't need me to say this, but with those arcade bars, so far as I understand it, like, you know, alcohol and things like that is still where they make the majority of their money. So... good times, good times. Sorry, I'm very happy that we're going to be getting GameWorks back. I was very sad to find out that one was going to be going bye-bye. And the fact that it's being reacquired, by my understanding, by some of the people who originally opened it, I like that. I like that a lot. Sorry, here's me like, I'm going to be going back to GameWorks one day and it's going to be real good. But yeah, sorry, the reason why I get so obsessed with these old stories is because they are ours. You know what I mean? They're so weirdly and wonderfully uniquely ours. You know, cinema had its whole thing of like the difference between, you know, the cinematic and television cut and things like that. That, you know, there were some movies you could only experience correctly in the right environment and things. They got to have that. And then we got to have the arcade experience. And then, you know, the online experience, the group. We've got such a breadth and depth of different ways that we can experience our medium that I get really excited talking about like the history of it, where we've been, where we might be going. Oh, Sadlin, that would be feckin' lovely. Just pile in the car, go to round 1 in South Centre. I haven't been there in 1,000 years. And supposedly, South Centre has a Gundam store in it. Hey! Chorby! Okay, not related, but for those of you who don't know, friends, Chorby did a dance game marathon the other day, including an inordinate amount of DDR. So, Chorby, I hope your vacation's going to be an absolute banger because you danced for it, friend. Yeah, Chorby, you earned it. I tell you, friends, I would definitely, if I ever ended up having stupid money, I would give serious consideration to getting the solid DDR pads and just getting a feckin' Stepmania set up. It was good times. Hey! Friends, I just started talking nice about GameWorks crew, and it's like I've summoned all the awesome people. Bart Nender, how in the hot feck are you, friends? What? Oh, and welcome! Miss you, dude. I mean, I miss seeing all of you. You know that, but we were just talking about like the experiential of arcades and all of the goodness that came with it. You know. So yeah, I guess, friends, we're doing a round trip to a road trip to round 1 at some point. Yay! I mean, just, yeah, Bart and Ender, fingers crossed, mate, fingers crossed. The squad will be there. Because on the one hand, I'm sad I missed the last day of GameWorks. But I'm going to try and be there for the first, you know what I mean? Chorby's been kicked out of the house all next week. Just pick a day. Shit. From what point are you getting kicked out, Chorby? Because we could do Sunday Fun Day. Sunday Fun Day is better than a Monday. Because that's technically my Saturday. This Friday all the way to the end of May. Wellity, wellity, wellity. Oh, actually, oh no, you're getting thrown out of the house. Okay. Because I was going to say, Great Chorbster, if you wanted to join us for Depth on Saturday. I still need to put together the full list of swimmers and sharks. Yeah. I mean, Salen's the one that won this particular round of Sharkage. Alright. But yeah, so, Chorby, Bartender, I hope you're all doing well, friends. Oh, my knee is not happy with me today. It's grumbly. It's right grumbly. Oh. Sorry, I know I'm having a big old grin. I'm real happy about the fact that y'all will put up with me talking about this stuff. I'm very happy because while the arcades changing from what they once were to what they are now is a story with both highs and lows. But it's worth saying the arcade scene is not dead. It's become specialized, certainly. And there's a new... I don't want to say viability. There's basically a new meta when it comes to arcades. You know, the arcade bar is a great, great idea. And it is a format that works very, very well. And as this continues to take up momentum, as it continues to spread to cities all over, it does mean that we're going to get to the point where teams and studios will have more reasons to potentially license their game out to arcade makers. We may see this coming back around. I mean, Lord Traden, bowling's never needed help. But bowling is as bowling is. If it wasn't for drinking, I doubt I would bowl. But I'm legally allowed to throw things while getting shit-faced, so whee! But seeing things continue as they are, I mean, what's going to be interesting is that Japanese arcade market's taken a massive beating over the last couple of years, shocking no one. And so while Japan was originally like the last bastion of like active arcade environments, what we may see is there being a very large demand for machines and a new potential supply. You know, for those of you who haven't seen like Killer Queen, an exceptional indie versus title where two different hives of bugs do battle to try and, I don't know, get the snail to the other side. I forget the win conditions of it. I was very drunk last time I played it. That is something that has the potential to go places. Like, with arcade machines, what are the real challenges? Physical shipping, physical manufacturing of the hardware. As games are becoming more ubiquitous in their creation, it essentially means that you could create newer arcade machines out of a sturdy Raspberry Pi and a sturdy control setup. Suddenly, then it's about licensing the games and finding the market, and that's a whole different kettle of monkeys. Okay, yeah. Fill up the hive, get the snail through the gate, or kill the opposing queen 3 times. Thank you, Sadlern. Oh, so interestingly, so Fearless and Bartender, esports bars are a big thing in Europe. There's actually a few licensed ones. One's called Meltdown, and it's a licensed franchise esports bar. It's all right. I mean, I'd rather go for a pint in a nerdy place than a non-nerdy place. And, you know, they have signature drinks that are what you expect. Oh, there was one which was the Shoryuken, which was a Ken-themed drink with a back of the shot glass light, and it was one of the ones where it had a shot in it. So essentially one of those like gravity drop shots. So shot goes in, glass goes over, flip, fill with a liquid, and then light the back of the shot glass. So it was like as you pull it up to mix the drink, it also extinguishes the fire as it's coming up. I thought that was very clever. As a drink, it's very sugary, like a lot of those, but I do love a bit of theatre. I mean, yes, there's always Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, Murica doesn't have a short of, like, themed bar setups. But, I mean, one thing that I've seen, and I guess I can talk about it now because, I mean, Vidiot's closed down. One of the most, I wouldn't say it was my favorite place, one of the most interesting nerd bars I went to in the greater Seattle region was called Vidiot. And it was one part 90s bedroom, one part pinball, one part like generic Millennium arcade, and one part back half of a pirate ship. It was very odd. Liked it, very odd. Now, I found this whole thing to be utterly fascinating. And one of the interesting things was that they had essentially an emulation cabinet. Now, obviously, we don't condone piracy here on the Longship or piracy of video games or what have you. I'm just, and video has since closed down. But they had a very large machine with essentially two arcade sticks built into the cabinet. But beneath that, essentially, was just a modified keyboard. Handlebar. Watto. Hello. And from that, they were running emulation software where you could just select things from a MAME emulator. Now, something like that requires a lot of personal skill and time to build. And excuse me. It's alright, it's no worry. Yeah, Salen. Video also had a totally legitimate Street Fighter 5 cam. Yeah, it was amazing how they managed to get the controllers to plug into that totally legitimate cabinet. Although, as a complete aside to an aside, one of the games companies I worked for previously had an Xbox 360 point-of-sale machine, or POS if you've ever worked retail, because those POS things always cause bloody problems. And what we did is we cracked open the cabinet. If you've not encountered them, a point-of-sale machine is basically a console, usually in like a Perspex case, with two controllers attached like an arcade machine, and it usually has like a demo disc and things like that. If you have the key, you can usually like change it out, but we worked out how to hack it. Well, I say pick the lock, and then swapped it out for Street Fighter 4, and so that was like our lunchtime thing. Yeah, sorry, that was just one that came into mind. We swapped out one of the characters for Sue Barker to see if anyone would notice. That was a good time. Well, so Chorby, at least that's the term that I learned was them as point-of-sale machines or POS, because they're a piece of shit. But also the idea is you're meant to have a play around with them whilst you're queuing. So it's meant to be either like a way to sell you games off of demos, or to be like, hey, I really want to play this Xbox machine. Maybe I should buy one of these Xboxes. No, Alnus, Sue Barker was in, I think it was Ultra Street Fighter 4. She didn't make the cut for Street Fighter 5. A lot of Sue Barker fans are hoping she's going to be returning for 6, but, we're not holding our breath. By my understanding as well, you calling it a POS machine, a point of sale, comes from other industries where they have like a demo machine by the register to make you look at it and go, "What's this?" But that's a whole other thing. Well, okay, Bart Nender, I understand what you're saying, but I'd like to answer your statement with a question, which is, have you ever seen Sue Barker and Chewbacca in the same place? Yeah, sorry, Lost Flowers was saying when they worked at GameStop in the mall, kids would just play those and not have their parents anywhere nearby. Yeah, we got really annoyed with kids. Sometimes parents would come shopping and basically just deposit their children in the game store and just leave them there. Let me tell you, you start giving them kids Skittles and telling them about, and start teaching them a few choice words, and let me tell you, they do not leave their kids with you anymore. See, Lost Flowers and Barton, yeah, not babysitters. But let me tell you, if you're going to let a bunch of minimum wage store employees talk to your kids at great length, those kids are getting an education. Ah, good times, good times. I will say, I did really enjoy working games retail. That feels like a whole nother story, but yeah. EXO, I'm saying that if you give those, if people are forcibly leaving children in your care, give them a bunch of Skittles. I mean, especially if you can show them some video games that are going to leave them hype as, like, whip those kids up into a frenzy and roll the grenade back. Because when that sugar crash comes, and it will come, that's not your
Reactor
problem.
online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
What ho people, PSA that you're awesome.
You'll also notice that people do not ask me to look after their kids. And Neo Shadow, thank you for 42 months, friend. Tell me your tales! How's it going? I mean, Chorby, if I meet somebody who named their kid game, honestly, I'll just be impressed. But yeah, in the United Kingdom, there's 3 main stores. Oh, well, I guess there's 2 now. There was Game and Game Station. Game was kind of like your equivalent of GameStop, so new and used. There was Game Station, which was all used, and then there was CEX, which was also used in retro, but with a focus on kind of like, I guess, everything. They all changed and morphed over the years. And yes, it's called CEX because if you say it, it says sex. It wasn't... It's a joke as old as nonsense. Yeah, and then EXO, yeah, Game bought Game Station, but kept them as 2 separate stores, and then dissolved Game Station and poured that into Game. That's actually a really interesting thing that happened during that transition, because Game Station made its money on retro, selling like old and classic titles. Game Group had a certain cutoff point where they would no longer sell games. They just wouldn't accept them for trade-in or wouldn't sell them before people realized the value of retro. Lol, I know. So I actually got to go to like an underground auction for retro games once. I mean, it was in an attic and there were beers, but yeah, a person who I would never name, because I wouldn't want them to get into trouble even now, a person who knew that these games had value and were basically going to be binned if they weren't sold, held this like beer and auction, and it was the fucking coolest I've ever felt. It was like an underground, you had to know people to get in, and yeah. The one I regret, and this is, I think I've talked to Sadlins about this, was not getting the 4 swords and 4 link leads for 4 Game Boy Advances. I couldn't picture a scene where I would have 4 Game Boy Advanced, and I still regret that to this day. Alan was saying, yeah, CEX has made major leaps and strides, mainly air conditioning stores, yes. But CEX is, I believe it's a franchise where you buy into it and they give you the branding and the stock and the methodology. So like, Game and Game Station were chain stores, like open tactically throughout the UK. CEX is a franchise that people could buy into. Mainly because I got like a 2-month ban from my local one. Back when I was, living in the UK. And here's the thing. Do you know what got me a ban? Was arguing with the manager that the game was too cheap. And I guess maybe I just caught the manager on an off day or what have you. But I'm at the counter and I'm like, hey, like, this is fucking cool. This is worth way more, right? And they went, no, it's not. And unfortunately, my nerdy self could not leave that alone. I was like, well, actually, 2-month ban. Admittedly, they kept getting more and more angry, and I got louder and louder about it. So, it was kind of a... And yet, Salem, I do know somebody who has that set up. Good times, good times. And I guess, again, this is the thing that I really love about our medium, is that we've been able to see these shifts and changes just in the last, 20 years. We've had as much culture in gaming as other art mediums have had over hundreds of years. I'm like, wait, what shenanigans is Skadi getting up to? I missed the thing, but I'm like, wait. Chorby's saying there's a lot of culture when an Italian plumber eats a mushroom and gets big. I mean, I never paid much mind to the OG Mario games. I think it wasn't really until Super Mario on the SNES that I really started being like, hey, this plumber guy's actually got some cool shit. I remember even as a kid laughing at Mario Brothers 2, which I know you all know the story about, how it was a different game, they rebranded it, etc. But I still remember laughing at it and just being like, this doesn't make any sense. Why can't Mario jump on stuff? This is dumb and bad and stupid. And yet, the original Mario is still deconstructed and deconstructed. There's a lot of brilliance to it, and its place and culture is entirely deserved. You know what I mean? No one talks about Cool Spot anymore, except to make jokes about Cool Spot. Oh, lordy. I mean, shit, it is kind of fascinating when you think about how just the pure ridiculousness of some of the fever dream creations we had of that early, first wave video games. I should say, well, not first wave. The first wave of games to really gain an identity beyond just being a product for children. And how since then they've evolved into so much. There is Mario lore now. Except for, again, Mario Brothers 2 does not count. No, Birdo's not real. Birdo's not real. That's why there's... Birdo's not real. Birdo's a fever dream. Literal fever dream. Well, Skadi, the reason why I called no counters to Navalis' dab earlier is I had to dig very, very deep. And I knew it was going to take me a while to be able to actually physically do it. So I called no counters on that one just because I didn't want their birthday thing to get, kicked to the curb. Anyway, sorry, jumping back. Chorby saying... Mario Brothers 2 isn't canon, but it's more canon than Super Mario Land. Rip Daisy. God. I used to be able to do that, just clear it in one sitting. I mean, hell, in a time before we would even use terms like canon to describe these titles. And it's evolved into something that I love so much. You know what I mean? I do not understand why games media wants to wail on Nintendo every chance they get. But I mean, Chorby, all I can assume is that Daisy's pissed somebody off at Nintendo. She said something really, she made a joke at, the Nintendo Christmas party, and everyone was like, Daisy, mate, you can't say that. But the damage was already done. And there was Rosalina waiting in, her understudy. Okay, one thing I will say, because Ehrman was mentioning... Ehrman wasn't mentioning... Who was mentioning it? Chorby was mentioning that Daisy got kicked out of Mario Strikers. The image that people used for that was the funniest feckin' thing, because it's Mario doing this iconic overhead soccer kick with all this like momentum. If you haven't seen it, Mario Strikers has this aggressive like Street Fighter before Street Fighter art style. And it looks like Mario's about to put a hole in the feckin' sun with this like overhead soccer kick. But what's in the way is Daisy's face. It looks like the last moments before Daisy has like reconstructive facial surgery via high-speed soccer ball. Or football, for those of us in the European spaces. And EXO, I wouldn't say that Nintendo kept Donkey Kong hostage. Nintendo is so slow to act. It's kind of fascinating when you look at like their business maneuvers, because it's basically what everyone else did like 5 or 10 years ago. The one that boggles my tiny mind was how late Nintendo got into the mobile phone game and then made a feckin' killing on it. It's kind of smart. Handlebar, I'll say this, of all the Nintendo princesses, Daisy looks like the kind of person that knows how to use a knuckle duster properly. Do you know what I mean? Like, Daisy once broke somebody's jaw in a bar after they said something they weren't supposed to. No one pressed charges, but nobody looked at Daisy weird again after that. You know, sorry, there's many threads going on here. See, Eraman, I'd actually say Peach is most likely to do a stabbing. I think Rosalina would just cry if you yelled at her. And yeah, Daisy's broken somebody's jaw. Now, Sadlin mentioned something really interesting, which is Buck Hunter and Golden Tea. And, like, I don't know if I've got enough in the tank to deconstruct that. I mean, here's the thing. The Buck Hunter games are good. And that blows my mind. Sagebell, Butt Hunter is a very different activity. And there's this bizarre intersection of, like, American hunting culture and, like... I'm trying to think of a proper time for it. In the UK, we have what's called fruit machines. They're not quite slot machines, they're not quite arcade machines. They're these weird little quirky light-up things where there's a slight chance you might win a couple of quid. But they appeal to a very mainstream kind of lads land. The Buck Hunter games have this appeal to the mainstream based on its thematics, you know. There is a gun. You know what a gun does. You shoot animals. You know how to do that. And the game's real good about telling you mechanically, shoot this thing, don't shoot this thing. That, combined with how prolific those cabinets are, creates this interesting scenario. Like, I really want to do more research into Buck Hunter, because the Cabela's games have always been a fascinating one that, by my understanding, the Cabela's games have always sold all right, mostly as tie-ins or with people who are uneducated in video game spaces. They actually did an open world game back in the 360 era. Sorry, just remembering when I started playing that game, I walked around, I spent all my money on an anti-bear revolver, and then lo and behold, a bear popped up and chased me. So I'm running away Fallout style, trying to defend myself, and my character went to jail for firing a firearm too close to a building. So strange. So strange. But no, it's the Buck Hunter arcade machines is definitely something that I'd want to do more of a deep dive into, like before discussing proper. Because you got to understand, those things are internationally prolific, beyond just American hunting culture. Book, the anti-bear gun did kill the bear, but I got a pop-up afterwards that my character had been sent to jail. So... Anyway, and Hannibal, I want to move away from the discussion of slot machines and things like that, because as a fascinating turn of events, the casino industry has really suffered from the rise of gaming proper, because it turns out nerds don't gamble like other groups or generations or demographics. There's actually been a massive downturn in younger individuals getting into like slot machines and casinos, which is obviously a good thing. But I find that fascinating, and so far as it's been explained to me by friends that know this better, it's to do with the psychology of gaming, in that we are essentially, if you'll forgive the terminology, we're conditioned for paid experiences. So we pick up a video game and we go, brilliant, this is $20, done. When you apply that same mentality to a casino, what people tend to do is go like, right, I'm going to buy 20 bucks of chips. I will never see these again. These are my fun tokens. I'm going to drink. I'm going to pretend to play games like it's in a movie. And then when my $20 is gone, I'm out. And it doesn't create the feedback loop of immediate monies. Plus, to my understanding, a large proportion of the slot handle machines have moved away from the physicalities of coins, which removes the tactile like feedback loop. It's kind of fascinating. And Catastrophe, hello, how is it going? Oh. Oh, and Lord Train, like, pinball is a wonderfully strange little quirk of its own, but I'm still learning pinball culture, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was kind of getting to know it a bit as I was living down in Georgetown. Well, okay, I was living in Beacon Hill, but I was like tumbly rolled down into Georgetown distance. And one of the things that was fascinating about that was how living in a city that has a pinball scene and what pinball culture is kind of fascinating. I don't know enough about it yet, but it's so curious. Pinball has its own language that boggles my little mind. Not just in terms of like how you play it, but the thematics and mechanics of it. I got very drunk with some pinball friends back when Flip Flip Ding Ding was still a thing, and they explained to me how different mechanics of different machines, how they tweak those to reflect the thematics of it. It's really fascinating. A lot of people use the Game of Thrones machine as a way to cite it, in that you pick a faction and then the mechanics of how you score points are reflected based on that faction's thematics. And I'm like, there is so much to understand here. But unless you really understand pinball or have someone to explain pinball to you, it's really hard to get it. Oh, I haven't been to the Fremont pinball place yet, I don't think. Oh, well, misnomers, I mean, we've all worked for shady people, and like there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, so I ain't judging. And I don't know enough about like the gambling industry to really comment on it. Obviously I'm not pro, but I wouldn't pretend to understand it. It's just been some interesting tangential stuff. Ooh, see, Salem, I didn't know that. Now, Salem was saying that the AC/DC machine does it a different way. you pick the song, and the machine changes based on which tune it is. So I assume based on the thematics or rhythm or, you know, what have you of the track, changes how you score points in that. It's really fascinating. I mean, Bartender, I like the Black Knight machine. Black Knight machine does not like me and it wrecks my face. Stopped playing it because it was eaten. Now, the one I really like is the Starship Troopers. Because on one side, so you have the flippers, but on one side, representing the weapon, you have an underslung second flipper, which is feckin' cool. And for some reason, I just was really good at that machine. So yeah, pinball's in this very, very strange place. We're lucky in Seattle because Seattle has a pinball scene. Different bars and teams compete. There is a league. It is very real. We've got the Houndstooth near us, but there's like the Pinball Museum. There's Shorty's. Oh.
Fun fact, pinball was originally restricted / banned as it was considered gambling. It was a lucky shot that convinced regulators that it was a skill game, which is why they all had the 4 entertainment-only paper on them.
Ah, yes, Bacon. I had completely forgotten about that. And thank you for not only reminding me, but putting $2 behind telling me. So thank you. Like, in Seattle, I mean, I'm hoping it's still going, but pre-lockdown, there was like a quarterly zine you could get of all the different teams and all the different bars that all competed in this league. It was really fucking cool. Like, and what was fascinating about it is that you'd think that the intersection of nerd culture and pinball culture would just be a circle, right? But what was fascinating was meeting people that have no involvement in nerd culture at all, who are deeply, deeply into the pinball scene. You know, obviously there are nerdy people in there, but at least to what I saw, no more so than you'd see in any other parts of Seattle. And that I found fascinating. That pinball culture in this town isn't just an offshoot of like a hardcore sphere of nerdism. It's very much its own thing. And that the crossovers are by no means guaranteed. Like, I met someone who's a pinball coach. That is what they do to make money. I kind of wish I'd remembered more of the tips they were telling me, but we were outside the bar and it was like 2:30 in the morning and I was steamingly drunk. I mean, I would consider competing in a pinball tournament just to see it. Like, I've done a couple of Magic the Gathering tournaments, like proper Grand Prix ones. Not the big ones, but like the open that you then compete in to get into the mains. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think if I've been to Jupiter's. Sorry, Jupiter's being a venue in Seattle. The weird one is one of the strangest hybrid machines is actually in the Unicorn in the downstairs, which is a Pac-Man pinball machine that has a mini Pac-Man screen up on the top. If you can get the shot high enough, it then sets off Pac-Man in a little area to score and then spits it down. Jupiter is in Belltown area on 2nd. Okay, I've been past Jupiter, never been in. It looks very sticky. Bismarck, how are you doing, friend? Also, friendos, like, thank you for coming and having a natter. I'm not bringing things to a close, but like, I had a very different plan of what today was going to look like stream-wise. But I get to hang out and talk pinball and Seattle locals and arcade culture and this weird medium that we've all come together around. And you're like doing that, and that's real cool. But no, it's a fascinating thing. Like, I'm sure there's probably a pinball scene in London, but there's a part of me that wonders, like, is there the same kind of pinball culture around it? Some cities can be too large to have that kind of cohesion. So I wonder, you know, I never found pinball culture in the UK, despite being in London for a while. But then, like, even back then, like, nerd bars were still making their way to more mainstream spaces, whereas Seattle had them for feckin' ages. Crux says the Pinball Hall of Fame in Vegas is one of their favourite places. Lovely. Sage Belt says group Jupiter trip. Sounds good. Like, feckin' sign me up. And Strager, welcome back. There was apparently a really awesome pinball place in Oregon, which is now gone. Little sad, never got to see it. Fair. I was hoping I would have been able to show everybody Vidiot before it went under, but it wasn't like a brilliant place. It's just, it had a 90s bedroom and a pirate ship in one venue. It's hard not to like that. I guess today is everybody's scramble day. Actually, you know what? Handlebars. I know I've played the Sonic Spinball game on the GBA, but right now I could not recall a single bit of it. I can mentally remember all the Sonic GBA games, but that one, God. I mean, sorry, friends, to drag you all into a million conversations. The amount of times myself and Salem have talked about Sonic Spinball being just this brutally hard game that even by pinball standards, it's fucking brutal. So, Happy Pie, I see what you're saying. It's mildly poetic that comparing Twitch to kind of like the pinball and arcade houses of old, you know, where you might find a strange cabinet you never knew of and you get to see your regular friends and things like that. I think that's kind of fascinating. But the thing that no, it's an interesting way of looking at it. Mainly because I do consider Twitch to be like kind of like a digital bar, essentially a place to see and natter with friendos. Occasionally there's something playing in the background, like one of those video games that you've heard talk of. Actually, so friends, just as a side note, oh, and Ezekiel, Watto friend, I need to apologise. Whoever it was that gifted me Rogue Tower, I apologise. I misattributed that to Kindball. But that game has been great for keeping me sane. Vampire Survivors is awesome, but I'm getting towards the point where I'm working for the rando cards and trying to get into the Bone Zone. So it's a lot of luck and a little bit more intensive than usual. So Ezekiel, what happened? Tell me your tales. Oh, I tried Songs of Conquest as well over the weekend. Albeit, like, I only played it for like 20 minutes or so, but it was interesting. See, the problem is, Ezekiel, I can't tell you everything. I was up very early because of stuff and things. And then more stuff and things. Then by the time I was able to actually get going with stream, we had a mass load of technical problems. And it kind of threw all our initial plans to the curb. Now I'm getting to hang out and chat like pinball and arcade machines with these lovely mother hubbards, and I fucking love it. Oh, way cool. See, Ezekiel, that's fucking grand. Ezekiel's saying that Easy Bench, which, if you haven't seen that in the Discord, friends, it's an Unreal Engine 5 benchmarking tool. You can download it on Steam just to test out your rig. Apparently it blew up, got featured on a freak ton of news outlets, from Tom's Hardware to WCCF Tech. I'm real happy for you. Yo. I'm real happy for you. so good to hear. Sorry, Ezekiel also adding that mixed reviews at the moment, but great feedback, and the userverse is amazing. Man, how can you have a bad review on a free benchmarking tool? I assume because people think their rigs are better than they are. Sorry, Ezekiel, I was actually having a quick skim to see the reviews there, and yeah, it's people complaining their PC's not good enough to run it. Actually, we should be able to change the resolution on this benchmarking tool. All right. So you want to be able to turn the settings down on your benchmarking tool. Okay, that's not entirely fair, but friends, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Sorry. Whew, it's very warm in here. So, I tell you what, friends. This has been a wonderful, wonderful few hours of natter, banter. I do apologise that we didn't get to One Shot today. Which, friends, if you haven't seen it before, One Shot is one of my absolute favourite games. The fact that I haven't got a one-shot tattoo yet is purely due to the fact that life keeps throwing me fucking curveballs. Yes, this could come out in 2016. This is probably one of the best games to point to for work smarter, not harder. I wholeheartedly recommend that if this is your first time hearing about this game, you need to play this. And I know it looks like it comes out of the post Undertale school of video game creation. It's truly something special. Oh, Lizzie, that would be feckin' lovely. No, Lizzie, please. Like, after seeing Dr. Horrible in the laundry list of lunacy, which was so much better than I was expecting. Like, I'm heckin' down for that one. Although, as a fun small side fact, so One Shot as a game was originally called that because you had one shot. Originally, you had to finish the game in one sitting. Because if you didn't, it was one of those, like, you can open it once, and once you close it, you're done. That was changed, and a lot of other things have been tweaked and added, and I can't really go into any more of it without spoiling what makes it so exceptional. I was hoping to show you all it whilst we were going through. Oh, lovely. Bartender suggesting to those of you in the greater Seattle region, the Pacific Science Center just reopened their true IMAX theater. They're showing Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Highly recommend. God, the one I want to go see is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Because I was trying to tell everybody how brilliant that was from just the trailer alone. And everyone's like, it's just Will going on about another thing. Now it's out. It's brilliant. And those same people are being like, hey, Will, have you heard about this movie? Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I just want to scream at the roof. However, we're not at a point where we can leave Amos alone. We went with some friends to see Doctor Strange, which was very good. When we got back, Amos had jumped the baby gates that we had to kind of keep him like penned in to the right place, and had pulled like the bin down and pulled all the stuff out of it. Thankfully, he's not a garbage eater. He just pulled it apart because he was bored. So that was a capstone on a night, let me tell you. Happy Pie, I love that idea. Honestly, again, it's just hours in a day. I've been meaning to get back into editing videos myself. There's a couple I want to make, there's a couple I need to make, but it's just I don't get time off anymore. It's been weeks. I guess I got a lie-in at some point last week, but like I don't get days off anymore. Pretty much my day is I get up, I get to hang out with you lot, which is always a fucking highlight, but then after that it's pretty much dog care until midnight, and then fall asleep drunk out of my skull, wake up for the next day, and that's my whole life right now. I did get to go have a Eurovision hangout with some lovely, lovely friends, who again, thank you so much for that. They had an outdoor Eurovision viewing party the day after, which was real nice, and we could bring the dogs. So that was a great way of offsetting it. But yeah, I haven't even had the chance to sit down and record like a first draft of the stuff I'd love to make. I guess, so Happy Pie, sorry, I didn't mean to dump on you there. Basically, yes, it's something I really, really want to do. I did do a lovely little breakdown with McElroy Films about my favourite part of Half-Life Alyx, if you want to give that a watch. It's non-spoiler. And I'm real proud of it. Anyway, dear friends, I'm going to bring our adventures to a close. I want to say thank you all for putting up with a very, very random, very, very chaotic Tuesday. Again, I had hoped we were going to get into one shot today, but the world's out against me. However, we still got to hang out, we still got to have a natter, and that makes me real happy, oh. And I think I know where we're going after this. I may have a very, very, very cool person to introduce you to. Ah, lovely. Lovely. So, tomorrow is Hades. Oh, and Happy Pie, I would absolutely try and do a tattoos and gameplay stream. That would be feckin' grand. Again, it's just I guess that one's more a time and a money question. Oh, and Ezekiel, like, one shot is exceptional. You really deserve to play it. And it's a great example of less is more when it comes to creation. Do not let the simple art style fool you. But yeah, so tomorrow, Hot Gods in your local area. Thursday, Appareos and Sagebell will be joining me for the Anacrusis. Friday, Sea of Thieves. And Saturday will be a little later of a usual start, but we will be playing Depth. There will be sharks. For more information, dear friends, please, please, please have a look over on the Discord, and we'll go from there. But no, I know I was having a little bit of a whinge there, but I just want to take another little moment to say, like, all of you, whether you put up with me in the real or just via this digital medium of twitch.television and what have you, thank you. Like, this right here, these conversations on Twitch is pretty much the best banter that I get these days. I love that the core of my day is chatting and hanging out with you all. And yeah, I can't say enough thank yous for that. I mean it. I really mean it. So, dear friends, okay. If you need me, I'm going to be reaching through the internet and punching the concept of the streaming software that I use because it is not letting me bring up my credits. So I have to apologize. You're just going to have to take a thank you from me to you all. Friends, all bits, donations, everything that you lot chuck through is what keeps me doing this. And it is not your responsibility to keep my mental health upright, but getting to hang out with you lot is the best. And I can't say thank you enough. And Crux, thank you for the sneaky 100. I'm going to pass you all over to CJ DeMocha. Oh, sorry, CJ DeMocha. Who is currently running around on some Ghost of Tsushima. He's doing some like super cool multiplayer stuff. There's a lot of fire. CJ is incredibly funny, so whether you get the chance to hang out and watch or otherwise, and sorry, choose to you too, and thank you for the 100. The Yaldum is still yours. And a hard-fought battle, no less. Now, I'm going to pass you all over to CJ. And then I think I'm going to have an ice lolly. Yes, tomorrow, Hot Gods in your local area, Anacrusis, Sea of Thieves, and then Depth on Saturday. My voice is going to be shot after Saturday. Alright, friends. Have a lovely, lovely rest of your day. And let's go be CJ's problem. But no, seriously, CJ is incredibly funny, and if you are not following him already, we need to change that. Yeah, I guess that's the long and short of it. Wow, there's me staring off into space. Okay, I'm going to raid you all over now. Friends, I mean it. Have a great rest of your day. If I don't see you, have a cracking week. Let's file this one under to be continued. Alright? Alright. Cheers to you, friends. Wait, why didn't it do the thing? Why didn't it do the thing? Do the thing! Do the windy thing!